feel it boiling over.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Diva. Tonight, we are focusing on the age like 40, like who you are as a woman, 40, and the milestone itself, and just how great 40 is. And we were just talking about this. I have Debi Kinney, who is in Las Vegas, right? And you change your career from working in corporate America, as they call it, with amazing sale records. I see you have, as they say, quite the resume. So, right? You know, so you're a goals coach is what you say. Hello Coaching is your business name. Thank you so much for making the time to join me here on Zoom. So, what made you decide to change careers in your 40s?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this topic. It's just, I tell everyone that's coming into their 40s, they're like, oh, I'm turning 40 this year. I'm like, it is the best decade. Like, run into this decade. It's amazing. So I switched from corporate hospitality, 25 plus years in meetings, events, sales, into goals coaching at the age of 45 because I wanted more fulfillment. I wanted to feel like what I was doing was having an impact on the people I was working with. And not that events aren't meaningful or impactful, but I was searching for a little bit deeper, with events, they remember key moments and things, but I really wanted that connectivity with individuals. And also being in events, I was working a lot of hours and I'm raising a son, I am a wife, and I wanted to devote more time to my family. So something had to give. So I said, you know what? It's time to make a switch. And the pandemic hit and I was approached about coaching. And I said, you know what? Let me try it. And about 6 months in, I kind of did a side hustle just to see. About 6 months in, I was like in my office running the numbers. And I was like, hold on. I called my husband. I said, I think I can do this full time, but please double check my math, make sure I carried the one and all the things. And he was like, yeah, let's do this. So I left corporate America and started my business. And it's been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like it is. I've seen International Women's Day just passed a few days ago. Social media is how we've connected thanks to Facebook. And I see on Instagram that you had this nice little message from women who are celebrating International Women's Day. Are those some of your clients?
That's clients, that's friends, that's colleagues, that's business partners. I still, I tried to leave events, but I just can't. It's in my DNA. So as part of my business, I still produce events. I do golfing events. I do spa events, networking events. And so a lot of those photos were from those, but it was just a collection of all the women in my life who I'm so very grateful for because they inspire me and help me to become the best version of myself every day.
Yeah. So, what did you study in school? How did Debi get to here and now,
Yes. I mean, oh my gosh, that's so many moons ago. I was a communication major. Which is great because it's very broad. Yeah, it's a broad topic. And then I minored in history of the Holocaust. So not applicable. Oh my gosh, I can't say the word applicable whatsoever to what I do today, but I am fascinated by it. And then I went on to get specialty certificates and credentials within my field of work, both in event planning and then also now in coaching. So I've continued my education. I'm a lifelong learner, but yeah, communications was the basis for everything.
Yeah, I know communication is important. I mean, it's the heart for everything. When you communicate with clients and customers, and you definitely in event planning, that's you with all of that. So when you were in corporate America and you said you were working long hours, were you working for a business? What business were you working in? I know a lot of it was sales driven, obviously, but when you were in that industry, what was that like?
So I worked for various types of companies. I worked for a Six Flags theme park. I worked for a convention and visitors bureau. I worked for hotels, caterers, restaurants, destination management companies, so nonprofits. So I had a really wide array of experiences, all under the umbrella of meeting and event planning. But if you think about meetings and events, they're typically nights and weekends. And
Right.
so, you're working they say 9 to 5. It's never 9 to 5. It's more like 6 to 10. 6
Yeah.
a.m.
Yeah.
And then, outside of those, because, clients have questions and, part of that expectation in the service industry is availability. And that ended up being a problem for me. That was like a boundary issue. So I'd get home after a long day and be cooking dinner for my family and my phone would be blowing up. It's like, but I've got a crying baby over here and I've got a crying client over here. What do I do?
Yeah. Wow.
And then you work your 9 to 5 and then you have your actual events that you're producing and you're setting up and you're attending the event and you're breaking down. And so it was, 60 plus hour weeks sometimes. And it's, we're much, much more aware now about mental health and burnout and things like that. Back in the day, it was just like, that's the job, do it.
Yeah, you have to figure it out. I know it's crazy. I think, like you said, COVID kind of made us rejig or rethink everything or make a different plan. Because, this is when I started podcasting more seriously, too. Like, the idea came years ago, but I just didn't make a plan, do a business plan and all that. And so hearing you talk about that, too, it makes me remember, 5 years ago, we just had opportunity to change the way that things were going for us. And so it looks like it was a good change for you, definitely, right?
100% was. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm literally I pinch myself. I'm grateful every day. I'm literally living my best life. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Because we're talking about, that milestone birthday or, from the age of 40 to 49 and just being a woman in this lifetime at that, where our bodies are changing and everything's happening. And I feel like it's kind of like you're comfortable in your own skin now. So what do you say to that? As
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because as I shared with you before, when I read about your podcast, I immediately am just so excited to talk to you because I think 40s is the best decade. I'm 9 months shy of 50 or 7 months shy of 50. So I'll let you know when I get there. But as of right now, 40s wins. So I'm super passionate about that. However, in addition, most of my clients are in their 40s to 60s. And because I coach in the area of health and fitness, as well as lifestyle habits and business, when you look at health and fitness, to your point, our bodies are changing and we feel like, is this even our body? Do we settle? For me, when I was 45 and I changed careers, I also went through a physical transformation, completely changed the way I ate, completely changed my workouts, and ended up losing 26 pounds and 17% body fat. Got rid of all the chronic pain. I had a back injury, got rid of that. So I'm in literally the best shape mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually of my life at 49. And I think when we were younger, you almost looked at 40s as like, oh, that's so old. Like life, is over and you just kind of ride that hamster wheel. And for me, it's like, no, this is a whole new life, a whole second chance to really, as you said, be comfortable in my own skin and own my identity and put it out there and just encourage others to do the same.
Yeah. And so you said a lot of your clients are in that age. And I think today I had a discussion with another entrepreneur. And I think there is so much that we don't talk about as women about our hormone levels, perimenopause. There's so much things that I'm learning on my own, like having to, like you said, you have to change your diet because of all the health concerns that we as women in this category deal with. And so as someone who's working with people on their health, what are our struggles that you've noticed?
Oh my gosh, so many struggles. Well, struggles internally in terms of relating to ourselves, how do we do all the things? How are we moms and wives and career women? And so, just that identity piece. Physically, our bodies are changing. Typically, especially in the midsection, we're getting belly fat. We're feeling bloated. Our clothes aren't fitting the way we want them to. We maybe don't feel as sexy to our husband or as sexy to ourselves or our partner. And so there's a lot of changes that are happening emotionally with our hormones. It's, a whole roller coaster.
Yeah.
So and even just with mental health, because as your as your emotions and your hormones fluctuate, your mental health can actually suffer. So one of the first things that I do with my clients is I have them not only, get on the scale. I'm a big data nerd. We work with the scale. I have them do photos. I have them do measurements. I have them do body fat percentage. Body fat percentage is actually the number one indicator of where your health lies in terms of potential risk for disease. That adipose fatty tissue is a big indicator. So we take all of those. I also, with my women, I do have them go to a doctor and get a blood test. I want to check them for deficiencies. I want to check them for hormonal levels, because you can change all the things in your diet, but if your hormone levels are off and you need medication to rebalance those, it doesn't matter how many sticks of celery you eat, you have to get some outside help. So I do encourage them. I work in tandem with the medical system because nutrition is a big piece of it, but it isn't always all of it. I worked with a client back in the fall who was having massive hormonal fluctuations. And I'm so thankful that she agreed when we started working together to go get her blood test done, because it was dangerous. Like, she's had to have some procedures done to that extent. And that's not to, scare. That was an extreme situation, but it's so good that's part of health and wellness, right? Is getting those evaluations annually and making sure that you're ahead of it. You're being proactive with your health, not reactive. That's really my point.
So you talk about hormone levels. So can you get a test for that? I think this is like you're the second person to talk about hormone. And I think there is this thing where that's not something you necessarily check. Like, you check your iron and your vitamin levels. I notice, like, here in Canada, you don't get as much sun in the wintertime. So I've had to up my vitamin D. And so hormones, is that something that you can? Like, what are you checking when you help your clients? What are you asking them in terms of blood work? What do you ask them to check?
I ask them to go to their doctor and work with their doctor. I'm a coach. I don't prescribe anything,
Yeah, not in that sense, but I meant, like you said, blood work, like general blood work is like, your checkup, right? Check your cholesterol, those things. But
and like some doctors will go deeper. They'll check thyroid levels. Like, I get a blood test every 3 months, and it's checking like my vitamin and mineral levels, checking my, oxygen, oxygenation. And so you can go as deep or as surface as you want, but the main thing is to do it regularly, to be proactive, not reactive, and to watch the trends over time. So I go every 3 months, and my vitamin B level, I've been taking massive doses of vitamin B. It's not moving. So we had to take a different course of action, because it wasn't alarming in and of itself in the test, but because it's not moving over time and I'm supplementing massively, it's like, okay, what's going on? So those are the types of things that I can work with clients and the medical system to watch those patterns and to give accountability for, and to make a plan for, so that health and wellness piece does get covered off on.
Yeah, you're pinpointing the important things too, because I think for like me, like many Black women suffer with like low iron, and I'm anemic, and I've been like this since I was a kid. And I think, there was at one point where my iron level was so low, and they have to do other tests, because it's not like I wasn't taking my supplements and eating. But once you figure it out, it's like, wow, it has to do like family history too. And knowing that, and had I known before, I probably would have done a regular test, because it was just like, wow, now we're in that situation where you're in dire straits and you have to make a radical change, right? And so
absolutely. And if you're deficient in something like iron, it can impact other systems in your body. And so now it's not just the iron, but it's, a host of other issues caused by the deficiency. And so, trying to get ahead of that, and knowing some people just run at a certain level. For me, I've had an autoimmune disease since I was in 4th grade, and I'm on medication now, and have, again, I'm 49. So it's been a long time that I've been on this medication, a couple of years. But this medication, typically it has some obviously side effects, like it impacts your bone density, things like that. I run on a very, very high dose of it, but my doctor knows me well enough to know you operate really well when you're on this high dose. So what might be kind of too high for someone else, you handle it really well. So we're going to keep you there. But that's the importance of going regularly regularly to make sure that it's all monitored and not causing other side effects. So yeah, it's knowing what your levels are and making sure you've got that pattern established so you can just watch for trends and any changes.
Diva Tonight. Glamour for your ears. This is 40, a female perspective.
Yeah, it's so important, like you said. And we were talking about, I think it's very important, like when you're considering getting a coach, I think a lot of people maybe don't think it's important to have a coach and to help you facilitate because like we have to manage so much. And so you were saying with what you do, like we're talking about health, but life coaching, business and personal, but you say they all intermingle with each other. Like, so why is it important to you feel as a coach yourself that you have to look at everything as a whole?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, for the people that think like, oh, I don't need a coach or, coaching is, a waste of money or a coach can't help me. I say, look at the top athletes, the top business people, top celebrities. They all have coaches. They are at the top of their game and they still have someone coaching them because that outside perspective, as our own little human bodies, we're too close to a lot of the issues that can really take us to that next level. So having that outside perspective is so helpful. The reason I coach under the umbrella of goals coaching in health and fitness and lifestyle and business is because those 4 areas are like the 4 wheels on 4 tires on a car. So if one goes flat, the other 3 are working a lot harder. Or if you're doing really well in one area, the other areas might be, pulling back a little bit. And so I try to really help people stay moving forward, keep that momentum, staying integrated. I don't really believe in the word balance because that implies like 50-50, right? Like work-life balance. Like it's a lie. It's a total lie. Sometimes you're going to be working harder because you got a deadline or you're trying to land a client. And sometimes you're going to be on vacation with your family and you're going to be kicking your heels up on a beach with a pina colada. Like it's about integration and finding that your own sense of balance for you. But that's why I chose those 4 areas, because those typically, if you're really killing it in the gym, you're probably doing really, really well at work because you're feeling good, you're eating well, you're meeting with clients. So we want to make those so that they're as integrated as possible. And so that's why I coach those areas.
Yeah. And so when you say that, it's like if one area in your life is suffering, then other areas start to suffer.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. The opposite is also true.
Yeah. And so
rising tides lifts all ships, right? But then if you've got one flat tire, it also pulls on the other and can harm your car. So you gotta find that integration.
I feel like, it's a habit too. How do you change a habit? Like for me, I'm a night owl and because the work I do is shift work. So sometimes I'm opening, sometimes I'm closing. And I got myself in a bad habit where I have to now force myself to try and go to bed earlier every night, because if I don't, I will stay up later than I should. Right. And sleep is so important with everything. Right. And so as a coach, how do you help your clients change the habits? Like the bad habits, it's hard,
It's really hard, and implementing the good habits is hard too.
Yeah, it is.
More easy. We all be walking around looking like supermodels, like millionaires, No, so what I do, I use a system, I call it the BID system. It's called breaking it down. I literally, right before you and I started talking, I just got off a Zoom with a brand new client. She's feeling really stuck in her business, unmotivated to the point where she doesn't even want to get out of her robe and leave her house, like unmotivated. So she's got a goal. So we talked about her big goal, which is a dollar amount. And I said, okay, let's break that down. To get to this dollar amount a month, what are the bare minimum steps that you can take every single day to get you to that end goal? It's doing the least amount of work, as making it as unpainful, if that's a word, as possible. But the secret formula is doing the work plus consistency plus time. That equals the results. So we devised a plan for her. We're just going into month 1 where she's going to do 3 things every single day, just 3 things. And they're not crazy. It's like 5 client check-ins a day. It's like being in the office for a set number of hours a day. They're not crazy. They're not unrealistic. But as she starts to build those patterns and those habits and she starts to see the results, the momentum will build. And that's how we start to build even bigger habits. And then we can just layer on top of them. But to answer your question, it's find the smallest step that you can take towards your goal, implement it consistently, and then build on top of that.
Right, right. Oh my goodness. That is so important because it's like, I think a lot of us can relate to that client where some days you just don't want to get out of bed. Like you have to, like you're forcing yourself and trying to find the motivation because I think more so now there's more mental health concerns than before. There's things like, various issues that people deal with that, it's kind of like unspoken thing. But I mean, I think we're becoming a society that talks more about mental health. And I think with a coach, that helps too. And so routine is very, very important, I think, with mental health. And COVID taught us that. But when you're someone who's like easily distracted, do you work with clients like that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you do. Yes. And so where do you start off first? Because I feel like we're kind of overwhelmed with it's like information overload. Right?
It is. And that's why creating that structure and that discipline is super, super important. So I have another new client that I'm working with. She's about a week and a half in. She's got a weight loss goal. She's got some, pre-diabetic, pre-high cholesterol numbers coming back from her doctor. But we're not going to say like, never eat red meat again and go eat kale 6 times a day. Like that's not realistic or sustainable. Yeah. So we set her 3 goals for the first week and a half, 2 weeks of us working together. And we're going to drink a set number of ounces of water. We're going to eat dinner at home 4 nights a week instead of 0 or 1 nights a week. Yeah. It's starting to just make these little lifestyle changes that will then again start to build the momentum. You start to see the results. Me as a coach, I add that accountability. So when we feel that overwhelm of like, oh, there's just this huge goal out there and I don't know where to start or what to do, I'm helping to sort of like spoon feed the steps layer by layer by layer. But you just have to start somewhere small with something that is like, oh yeah, I can call 5 clients a day. I can drink 64 ounces of water a day. Like this isn't rocket science, right? And then as you start to realize those small wins, your confidence builds. You start to trust yourself more and you're like, okay, I can do more. I can eat kale twice a day now. And, I can cut down red meat like once a month or whatever that looks like. So that's where we start with the overwhelm is just making really, really small changes.
Well, since you're talking about clients, so if I was your client and you know a little bit about me now, I said I'm anemic and, working on the diet thing, because eating more lentils, rice, and more red meat, because that's where I'm lacking, right? So I guess what would your pointers be for me to keep that? Because what I was struggling with was keeping my iron at a certain pace. And now I've actually, my last checkup, it had improved immensely. So I have to keep that going, right? And not fall off the beaten path, so to speak.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I say start small. Is because when you get those small wins, then you can build on top of them. If you try to just go for the goal right out of the gates, it's really hard to sustain them. It's like all these things that you have to do on top of what you're already doing. So if you can pick 1 or 2 or 3 healthy things that you can do, like I want to eat more complex carbohydrates versus simple carbohydrates. I want to drink more water. I want to eat more lean protein, not fatty protein. I want to incorporate more legumes into my diet. Those small steps versus saying like, I'm never going to have fast food again, or, all or nothing. So to make it sustainable, it's just creating those 1, 2, or 3 goals that you keep with day after day, and then you build on top of that. Wow. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think it's like you said, small which is what I work towards, and definitely have to start again. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's like good this week, and then the week where, dealing with like back pain and like, not feeling the greatest. Right. And so the one part of, being 40, I'm still dealing like, I'm not at that part yet, but like, you know what I mean? The menstrual cycle that we all have to deal with like once a month, and that's the part where at this age in life, it's more painful, so, but yeah, I think what I want to say is you work with clients from various, not just in the US, right?
Yes.
So if someone is interested in working with you, what's the best way? Do people contact you on your Instagram, on your website? Like,
Website is the best place because it's kind of the one-stop portal that takes you to all my social media and all the places, my email, all of that. So it's hellocoaching.info is my website address. And from there, you can connect with me. And there's all sorts of like free resources and tools and articles on that site. But it will also connect you to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the things.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, it's important that you share your story. And I think the one thing I didn't talk about or ask you about family life and how your son is older and, you've been married for a while. And so at this part of your life, what is the one thing that you can say to any woman in their 40s at this stage of their life, if they're turning 40, what would your message, I think, is what I would touch on.
What I tell people every time they tell me like, oh, I'm turning 40. I'm so scared of this, turning this corner, it's midlife. And I tell them it's the best decade yet. Like it is not old. Life is not over. Like if anything, it's a brand new chapter to reinvent yourself and to really go after your dreams. You know yourself better. You've been in your body for 40 years. Like, you know what you want, who you are, what your values are. That's really the time to embrace that and go after it. Typically in our 40s, we're more established career-wise, financially. So we have a little bit of a cushion to be able to say like, oh, I want to start a side hustle, or, oh, I really want to train for a marathon or a Spartan race, or meet my, the love of my life. And I want to dedicate my time to really connecting with a partner. And so that's my message is like, this is just the beginning of a new chapter. It's the best decade. I love it.
And even if you aren't financially where you want to be, what do you say to that, to those women, as well?
It's not too late. I mean, I'm living proof. I was in corporate America. So it's, set payday and out on my own now. I'm making better money and I have more financial and time freedom than I ever had in corporate America. And that's one of the reasons I decided when I started coaching, I didn't coach business coaching, but I'm an award-winning business strategist. I love sales and marketing. And so I was like, you know what? I've built my business and I want to pay it forward. I want to help other people do the same. So yeah, even if you're not where you want to be financially, which I wasn't at 45, I was living paycheck to paycheck. We were traveling once a year as a family. We wanted to take a vacation. Now we travel 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year. It's not too late. You can always build a bigger, brighter, better future, a bigger, brighter, better version of you.
Yeah, that's so important. I think it's, we've been taught that, yeah, your degree, and then you're going to find a job and the goal is to work and make that paycheck. And entrepreneurship is not something for everyone, but I think there's just some of us that, realize that we want to do more with our time. And it's so important. And so as a coach and someone who has a very experienced business background in sales, I think that goes to say that probably helps you too, what you're doing. But if someone wants to transition, right, what do you say to them? Because I think it's hard in your mind to start off and it's that push. And so I feel like you're that person to advocate for doing it for many years now, right? Yeah.
I mean, I think we're all in sales on some level. We're all selling ourselves all the time, no matter, whether we're selling, a cup or a service or whatever, we're always all in sales. But from a transition standpoint, I say, look at what you want to be doing and look at what you're currently doing and what skill sets are transferable. So for example, in event planning, there was always this overarching end goal, this end vision of what we wanted the event to look like and feel like and be like. The same thing goes for coaching, and whether that's a weight loss goal, a muscle gain goal, a business goal, we all have this end vision, this dream in mind. So we just reverse engineer the steps to get there. It's the same thing I was doing in event plan. All the events were totally transferable. It's just under a different umbrella. And I'm not a unicorn in that, right? That's for anybody out there. Look at what you're doing, look at what you want to do, find the skills that are transferable and go for it.
No, that's some great advice. And I want to thank you for sharing your process and your journey. I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight with Debi Kinney in Las Vegas. Oh my gosh, I haven't been in so long, but I love it. Yeah, definitely. So thank you again for sharing.
Thank you.
Diva Tonight with Carlene will be back. send us a message on Instagram at diva_tonight.